In the heart of Rome, in 1505, where the eternal city buzzed with the sounds of construction and the whispers of power, the Vatican stood as a beacon of faith and authority, its marble halls echoing with the footsteps of priests, nobles, and artists. Pope Julius II, known as the Warrior Pope for his fierce ambition and military campaigns, sat on the papal throne, his crimson robes a stark contrast to the white marble of his chambers, his stern face framed by a graying beard. Julius was a man of grand visions, determined to make Rome the center of the Christian world, and he had summoned the greatest artists of the age to his court to bring his dreams to life. Among them was Leonardo da Vinci, a 53-year-old master whose reputation as a painter, inventor, and thinker had spread far beyond the borders of Italy. Leonardo arrived in Rome at the Pope's request, his long hair tied back, his simple tunic a humble contrast to the opulence of the Vatican. He carried with him a small wooden case filled with sketches and tools, his dark eyes scanning the grandeur of the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo, his rival, was already at work on a commission that would one day become legendary. But Julius had a different task for Leonardo, a painting to adorn the walls of his private chapel, a depiction of St. Peter, the first pope, receiving the keys to heaven, a symbol of the Church's divine authority. The Pope had heard of Leonardo's skill with religious subjects, his Last Supper in Milan a testament to his ability to capture the sacred in paint, and he expected nothing less than perfection. "Leonardo," Julius had said, his voice a low growl, "this painting must glorify the Church, a reminder of its power and purity. Do not disappoint me." Leonardo bowed his head, his expression serene, but beneath his calm exterior, a storm of thoughts raged. He had seen the underbelly of the Church during his time in Rome, the corruption, the greed, the indulgences sold to the poor in exchange for promises of salvation, the wars waged in the name of faith. As he walked through the city, he heard the cries of the downtrodden, saw the opulence of the clergy juxtaposed against the poverty of the people, and his heart ached with a desire for justice. Leonardo had always believed that art was more than beauty. It was a tool for truth, a way to speak when words were too dangerous. And so, as he set up his easel in a small chamber off the Pope's chapel, he made a decision that would change the course of his life. He would paint St. Peter, but he would hide within the work a message that revealed the Church's dark secret, a message that only the keenest eyes would see. The painting took shape over weeks, Leonardo's hands moving with a precision born of years of practice, his brush strokes delicate yet deliberate. St. Peter stood at the center of the canvas, his weathered face illuminated by a heavenly light, his hands outstretched to receive the golden keys from a radiant angel above. The background was a serene landscape, with rolling hills and a clear blue sky, a vision of the paradise the Church promised its followers. But hidden within the folds of St. Peter's robe, in the shadows of the angel's wings, Leonardo wove a series of symbols, small, almost invisible to the untrained eye, but unmistakable to those who knew how to look. The symbols, drawn in a code Leonardo had developed in his notebooks, spelled out a message in Latin. The keys to heaven are sold for gold, while the poor are left in chains. It was a direct accusation of the Church's corruption, a truth that could shake the foundations of the Vatican if it were ever revealed. As the day of the unveiling approached, whispers of Leonardo's work spread through the Vatican, The courtiers and cardinals eager to see the painting that would glorify their faith. But not everyone was so eager. Cardinal Giovanni Rossi, a close adviser to the Pope and a man known for his ruthless ambition, had heard rumors of Leonardo's unorthodox methods, his tendency to question authority, his habit of hiding secrets in his work. Rossi, with his sharp features and cold eyes dressed in the scarlet robes of his office, had made a fortune selling indulgences, and he feared that Leonardo's painting might expose the very practices that had enriched him. Late one night, under the cover of darkness, Rossi slipped into Leonardo's chamber, his torch casting flickering shadows on the stone walls, and examined the canvas. His eyes narrowed as he spotted the hidden symbols, his mind racing to decipher their meaning. When he realized the truth of the message, his face turned pale with rage, his hands trembling as he clutched the torch. "This heretic dares to mock the church?" he muttered, his voice a hiss. "He will pay for this insolence." The next morning, as Leonardo prepared for the unveiling, Cardinal Rossi stormed into the Pope's chambers, his scarlet robes billowing behind him, his face flushed with anger. "Your Holiness," he said, his voice trembling with barely contained fury, "Leonardo da Vinci has betrayed us. His painting of St. Peter contains a hidden message, a vile accusation against the Church, claiming we sell salvation for gold. This cannot stand. He must be punished, his work destroyed before the court sees this blasphemy." Pope Julius II listened in silence, his stern face darkening with each word, his fingers tightening around the arms of his throne. He had trusted Leonardo, believed in his genius, but this betrayal cut deep, threatening the very authority he had fought to uphold. "Bring him to me," Julius growled, his voice low and dangerous. "I will deal with this myself." Leonardo was summoned to the Pope's private chapel, his heart pounding as he entered the room, the canvas of St. Peter still draped in a cloth, its secrets hidden beneath. The Pope stood at the center of the chamber, his crimson robes a stark contrast to the white marble walls, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger and betrayal. Cardinal Rossi stood at his side, his cold eyes fixed on Leonardo, a smirk playing on his lips as he anticipated the artist's downfall. The room was filled with the Pope's courtiers, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease, their whispers filling the air like a storm on the horizon. "Leonardo da Vinci," Julius said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you were tasked with glorifying the Church, yet I am told you have defiled it with a hidden message, a slander against our sacred mission. Is this true? Speak, or I will have you cast out of Rome in chains." Leonardo stood tall, his simple tunic a stark contrast to the opulence around him, his dark eyes steady as he met the Pope's gaze. He knew the danger he faced, exile, imprisonment, or worse, but he also knew the power of the truth he had hidden in his work. "Your Holiness," he said, his voice calm but resonant, "I have painted St. Peter as you commanded, a symbol of the Church's divine authority. But I have also painted the truth, a truth that the Church has buried beneath its gold. If I have erred, let the painting speak for itself. Unveil it, and let the court decide." The courtiers gasped, their whispers growing louder as Cardinal Rossi's smirk faltered, his eyes darting to the Pope in alarm. Julius hesitated, his hand hovering over the cloth, his mind torn between his anger and his curiosity. Finally, with a sharp nod, he pulled the cloth away, revealing the painting to the court. The room fell silent, the courtiers leaning forward to admire the work, their faces filled with awe at the beauty of St. Peter, the radiance of the angel, the serenity of the landscape. But then a young scholar in the crowd, a man named Matteo, who had studied Leonardo's codes, stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he spotted the hidden symbols in the folds of the robe. "There!" he cried, pointing to the canvas, his voice trembling with excitement. "There are symbols, letters in a code. They spell out a message in Latin." The courtiers murmured in confusion, their eyes darting to the painting as Matteo translated the words aloud. "The keys to heaven are sold for gold, while the poor are left in chains." A collective gasp filled the room, the courtiers turning to one another in shock, their whispers turning to exclamations of disbelief. "He speaks of the indulgences," a noblewoman in a green gown whispered, her hand covering her mouth. "He accuses the Church of corruption," a merchant nearby added, his voice filled with outrage. Cardinal Rossi's face turned pale, his hands clenching into fists, as he realized the extent of the damage Leonardo had done. The courtiers, many of whom had bought indulgences themselves, began to murmur in anger, their faith shaken by the truth of the message. Pope Julius II stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the painting, his mind racing with the implications of what he had just heard. He had known of the Church's practices, had turned a blind eye to the corruption for the sake of power, but to have it exposed so publicly in his own chapel was a blow he could not ignore. He turned to Leonardo, his voice trembling with rage. "You dare to speak such blasphemy in my presence?" he roared, his hand reaching for the sword at his side. "You will burn for this, Leonardo. Your painting will be destroyed and your name erased from history." But before the Pope could act, Leonardo stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Destroy the painting if you must, Your Holiness," he said, his tone unwavering, "but the truth cannot be erased. I painted this message not to defile the Church, but to save it, to remind us all that faith should lift the poor, not chain them, that the keys to heaven are not for sale, but for those who seek justice and love. If my words are blasphemy, then let them be my final act of faith." The room fell silent, the courtiers holding their breath as the weight of Leonardo's words settled over them like a heavy fog. Even Cardinal Rossi, his face flushed with anger, could not find the words to respond, his own guilt laid bare before the court. Pope Julius II stared at Leonardo, his hand still on his sword, his mind torn between his fury and the truth he could not deny. The courtiers watched in stunned silence, their eyes darting between the Pope and the artist, their faith and their loyalty hanging in the balance. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Julius lowered his hand, his shoulders slumping as the fight drained out of him. "You have spoken a truth I cannot ignore," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. "But you have also endangered the Church with your recklessness. Leave Rome, Leonardo. Take your painting and go. I will not destroy it, but I cannot let it remain here." The courtiers murmured in shock, their whispers filling the room as Cardinal Rossi turned away, his face pale with defeat, knowing his own corruption had been exposed. Leonardo bowed his head, his expression serene as he gathered his painting and left the chapel, the weight of his actions settling on his shoulders like a mantle. He returned to Milan, the St. Peter canvas safely in his possession, its message a silent testament to the power of truth. The painting would remain hidden for centuries, its whereabouts unknown, but the story of Leonardo's defiance spread through Rome, whispered in the halls of the Vatican, a reminder that even the mightiest powers could be challenged by the courage of one man. And though Leonardo faced exile, he carried with him the knowledge that he had spoken for those who could not speak for themselves, that he had used his art to shine a light on the darkness, a light that would one day inspire others to seek justice. The years passed, and Leonardo's name grew in legend, his works celebrated as masterpieces of the Renaissance, his courage remembered as a beacon of hope. The St. Peter painting, though lost to history, became a symbol of the power of art to speak truth to power, a lesson that echoed through the ages. So, the next time you face a choice between silence and truth, remember Leonardo's bravery and let his story inspire you to speak, to create, to fight for what is right. If this tale of courage and conviction moved you, we have many more stories of Leonardo's genius and defiance waiting for you. Click the screen to explore and subscribe for daily stories that remind us of the power of art to change the world.